Welcome to Shepherd's Table. I'm your host, Ian Parkinson, and I have with me today Pastor Patrick Schoenberger from Heights Baptist. Welcome, Pastor Patrick.
Thank you, Ian.
Israel.
Yes.
What's going on there?
Well, we can talk about what's happening in Israel presently, but, I want to point out the fact that from Genesis 12 to Revelation 22, the Bible is all about Israel.
Yes.
And as Christians, we have an obligation to support Israel and the Jewish people. And when I say that, I'm not saying that you have to agree with every decision of the Israeli government and all those sorts of things. But the fact is that Israel is the Jewish state. The Jews are God's chosen people, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The Jews, as Christians, have given us the scriptures, the Old Testament, the New Testament, written primarily by Jews. They have given us the Messiah, Jesus Christ, a Jew, a lion of the tribe of Judah.
Yeah.
This is who he is. They have given us so much. Jesus Christ was born in Israel. He rose from the dead in Israel, and when he comes again, he will come to Israel. And when we look at the creation of the modern state of Israel 70-some years ago, this is really a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. The Romans dispersed the Jewish population in a lot of ways, drove them out of the land of Israel, drove them out of what was known as the Roman province of Judea, and changed the name of the land of Israel 2,000 years ago to Syria Palestina, naming the land after the enemies, the ancient enemies of the Israelites, the Assyrians and the Philistines. And that's where we get the name Palestine that was used for so long. So this is kind of the background, but God says through his word, I will bring my people back to the land that I have given them, and they will not be driven from it again. That's the conclusion in the book of Amos. And there's so many scriptures that could be shared. But we see in the recreation of the modern state of Israel, God fulfilling prophecy and bringing the people of Israel back to the land of Israel. And millions of Jews from around the world have returned from the four corners of the earth to the land of Israel. And so Christians, I think, have a biblical obligation to support the Jewish people and the nation of Israel, because this is a part of what God is doing. And as well, we have an obligation, I think, to support Israel today in terms of, for example, its current conflict with Hamas or with Iran or with the Houthis in Yemen, because Israel has the moral high ground.
Yes.
A lot of people will accuse Israel and say Israel is occupying land illegally. Israel is an apartheid state. Israel is committing genocide. The fact is, none of those things are true, and in fact, they're guilty of the other side. The other side is illegally occupying land, practicing apartheid, and committing genocide. And all we need to do is look at Israel. Israel, 20% of the population is Arab. Israel has millions of Arab citizens.
Yes.
There's no apartheid, there's no genocide. But yet when you look at Gaza, how many Jews are there? How many Jews are in Syria? How many Jews are in Iran? The Muslim world has ethnically cleansed the Jews that used to be throughout that entire region. And so Israel is not guilty of these things. And then when you look at the current situation with Hamas, a terrorist organization, Israel withdrew from Gaza 20 years ago. And what did the Arabs do? They could have turned Gaza into a state. They could have turned it into a vacation destination with that Mediterranean beach. They could have done all kinds of things. Before Israel withdrew from Gaza, they grew all kinds of fruits and vegetables there in greenhouses. And the Arabs had the opportunity to do all those things, but instead they turned it into a rocket launching base to attack Israel, digging terror tunnels, invading Israeli territory. And we saw 2 years ago on October 7th, 2023, a music festival, young people raping women, going into kibbutz, burning babies, slaughtering families, taking hostages. There are still 50 hostages unaccounted for, hidden somewhere in the tunnels of Gaza that we don't know. And there's all this, we're always being told by the politicians, by the mainstream media, we need to support Ukraine. We need to support Ukraine. And I traveled across Saskatchewan and Manitoba this summer, and you go to the legislature in Regina. There's a Ukraine flag, and we're always being told we have to support Ukraine. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. That's a separate conflict. Why shouldn't we support Israel? Israel is the front line in this battle against Islamic extremism, And I think not only as Christians, but as Canadians, as Western citizens, we have an obligation to support Israel.
Israel, the Jews, Israel in particular, has always been the whipping boy for oligarchs and tyrants and potentates that think they're going to rule the world, and yet Israel still stands today.
Well, and this is why, when sometimes people say that the Jews are no longer God's chosen people, and I say, well, why is it Satan still trying to kill them?
Yes.
Because, and we can look back through history, and whether it was the Egyptians, the Persians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Seleucids, the Romans, the Muslims, the Nazis. I mean, it just goes on and on. There's always an empire trying to destroy the Jews, and yet the Jewish population globally is 15 million people, so the Jews are a very small group. And Israel is a very small country, about the size of Vancouver Island. And yet, they accuse the Jews of occupying land. And really, Israel is just a small sliver of land. But I believe that this is a spiritual battle. The Jews are God's chosen people, and God said to Abraham, you are my chosen people, and to you and your descendants I give this land as an everlasting possession, this covenant through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And if Satan can destroy the Jewish people, or drive them out of the land, then Satan has in effect nullified those covenants that God established through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so this at its core is a spiritual battle. And that's why every battle that Israel fights, we look at the War of Independence in 1948, or the Six-Day War in 1967, the Yom Kippur War in 1973. It's always a fight for Israel's existence and Israel's survival. A lot of people will say, well, it's about land and politics and stuff. That's not true. The mandate of Hamas is not only to destroy the state of Israel, but to kill every Jew on the face of the earth. Iran is always counting down to Israel's destruction. And when people, these woke university students, they're singing from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. What are they saying? From the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, that Israel will be wiped out. This is a call for the annihilation of Jewish people. Yeah. And anti-Semitism is on fire in this country. And it's very woke. It's very politically correct to be anti-Semitic, and they'll say, "Well, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm anti-Zionism or something like that." And it's really just a play on words, because what is Zionism? It's a belief that the people of Israel have a right to live in the land of Israel. And so if you're anti-Zionist, you're anti-Israel, and if you're anti-Israel, you're anti-Jewish, because you can't separate the people of Israel biblically from the land of Israel. And so, I have grave concerns for our country when we see these pro-Palestinian / pro-Hamas rallies. The levels of anti-Semitism have increased. In Canada, we have seen Jewish schools shot at, and synagogues and community centers. It's Muslims, I don't think, fear going to the mosque on Fridays, but for Jews, it can be very unsettling going to synagogue on Saturdays, and many of them need security. No, I think as Christians, we have a biblical and moral responsibility to support Israel. And again, it's not a blank check to approve of every little thing Israel does. But by and large, we have to recognize a lot of people accuse Israel of killing civilians. It's a propaganda war. Israel doesn't benefit from killing civilians, because then they're condemned by the world. Hamas benefits when civilians die, because they can blame it on Israel.
Even if they pull the trigger.
Well, exactly. And oftentimes they will shoot rockets from an apartment building, for example, and Israel will call people in the apartment building and text people, and they'll drop leaflets, and they'll say, we're going to bomb that building because there are missiles being fired. Please flee. I mean, what army in the world tells people to flee before they bomb? But what happens is then people in Gaza try to flee that apartment building, and the Hamas gunmen stop them and keep them prisoner in that building. Israel bombs the building, civilians die, and Hamas says, Israel is targeting civilians. That's not true at all. Israel tries to avoid civilian casualties, but Hamas wants civilians to die because it benefits their propaganda war. And ultimately, that's what this is. It is a propaganda war. Yeah. It's a war for the truth.
Excellent. Thank you for coming in, Pastor Patrick.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching.